Welcome to Monday, February 5th, 2024. Your Day Weather Podcast being brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that no matter how cold and snowy it gets in Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. To swim, soak, or slide, go to thermopolis.com. Well, winter is back, folks. The trend in the weather pattern certainly has changed after that long stretch of spring-like weather. Well, reality has come back into the region with rain and snow and colder weather. We're going to see more heavy weather along the west coast today and really here for the next 3 days. There'll be more heavy rain in California, and moisture from that California storm will be directed northeast from the west coast into the Great Basin and western states, along and west of the divide especially. Now for you folks east of the divide, at least here for the first 2 or 3 days of the week, we don't see much, but from the mountains and to the west coast is where the weather's going to be here for the first half of the week. This means off and on mountain snow, and we're going to see this right on through the weekend. We'll show you as a rather disorganized area of low pressure will settle into the Rockies and High Plains later this week and into the weekend. This will negate a big storm, but what we're going to see are several little systems over the next 7 to 10 days that will keep the weather active, keep it colder, keep it snowy off and on in the high country, which will be good for the snowpack and skiers and snowmobilers. Now, while over the next 7 to 10 days we don't expect any severe cold, we are certainly going to be in a situation that it's certainly going to be colder than it's been. We kind of got spoiled there for a while. Speaking of spoiled, there was a lot of the region that just got rain out of this system. Here's a shot from the Bighorn Mountains this weekend, northern Wyoming, where you see it brown down low and even into the foothills there, not much snow. But it all depended on where you are. In some areas where the upslope, that southeast wind was the highest, especially above 6,000 feet, it snowed pretty good. And you can see that on the satellite imagery. Now this is a satellite image that was taken yesterday. The white that you see here is basically all snow, with the brown obviously here on the plains where it was rain. But that was that axis that we had talked about where that heavier moisture was going to concentrate along the southeastern facing slopes of the mountains and above 6,000 feet. But it was warm enough for rain elsewhere. And this is what it looked like on the plains of eastern Colorado on Saturday afternoon. You know, we had thunderstorms in eastern Colorado Saturday. Those look like spring clouds, not February clouds. That was a testament to that moisture coming up out of the Gulf. Now, this is what we're looking at as we get the week started. Here's the low pressure center that's right now centered here, but the counterclockwise circulation around the low is what's driving just a lot of Pacific moisture into southern and central California. So this is just going to be an area of very heavy rain again. And this moisture is going to be directed this way. It's going to be directed up into Idaho, through Utah, into western Wyoming, up into Montana and the Pacific Northwest. East of the divide, see all the blue here? More low cloudiness and fog will persist in those areas here for a little bit longer. But along and east of the divide, there's a little bit of high pressure here. So it's west of the divide is where the weather is going to be here to start the week. And you can see that on this morning's radar image, showing very nicely where the precipitation is going to be. Moisture getting pushed into southwestern Montana, eastern Idaho, and western Wyoming has prompted some winter storm watches and advisories to be issued for the Wind Rivers, the Yellowstone area, the Jackson area, then into the mountains of Utah, southwest Colorado, parts of Idaho here, and then you can see the pink, more winter storm warnings in effect from New Mexico through Arizona, Nevada, then into the mountains of California. All that green there are flood warnings and advisories for the heavy rain along the west coast, and the gray area here shows a very persistent area of low clouds and fog that'll be around again today. You can see it very easily on the satellite imagery, but also the 500 millibar chart, why the west coast will be so wet. Strong, moist jet stream winds just driving into the western United States, but you see how it's directed this way. So this high pressure going to protect these areas here for at least the beginning of the week. As we get into Wednesday, we're going to see a shift eastward of the trough. So this will bring colder weather back in. The high now moves into the Gulf Coast, And this is going to basically result in, from the middle of this week through the weekend, this area of low pressure is just going to settle into the Rockies and High Plains, leading to colder temperatures and areas of snow in the mountains, often on chances of light snows, mainly across the low elevations. It's not a pattern where we can just get one storm organized and consolidated, several little ones. So that's going to be, the best way to describe it is unsettled. It's going to be colder, unsettled. There'll be occasional travel problems because we're going to have these off and on periods of snow. This is the precipitation forecast that takes us through 5 p.m. Wednesday into early Thursday. And what you can see, again, we say this all the time, but that divide really makes a difference. And so you can see that moisture gets pushed into the divide areas, but you can see there'll be more heavy snow for the mountains of southwest Colorado, the Wasatch here, western Wyoming's mountains, the mountains of Idaho will do well. Then you can see the gradient of heavier moisture to the east, but east of the mountains, only spotty precipitation through Wednesday. So this takes us through the first half of the week, and that's where the snowfall looks like between now and Wednesday. Now, for the second half of the week, here's that area of low pressure, just settling in, but we have 3 low centers. This is why it's going to be disorganized, not just one consolidated system, but several little ones. This is going to make it colder, unsettled, and will bring occasional precipitation. We'll see some nice and needed moisture up here in North Dakota and Montana, all in the form of snow. Most of this will be in the form of snow with the colder weather. So you can see there's not just one organized area where it's really heavy, but there's going to be active weather through the weekend with colder temperatures, and enough of that cold will be with us that most of the precipitation will be falling, there it is, in the form of snow. So winter is back, at least through this week and into the weekend, and likely longer than that as things are looking in the long term, and that'll be something that we'll talk about later this week. Have yourself a good Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.